So I have a quick question, which I know is a big question, and we won't necessarily answer it yet. But there was a comment which I read before the program, before I came on. I think it was in that Bello YouTube video. I'm obsessed with that video now. I really thought he was like kind of clueless. But anyway, in the comments, somebody wrote and said, Nigeria is proof that it is class and not race that is at the root of societal problems. Like, how do you react to that kind of statement? And I'm just saying that because we're also now appealing for these kind of broad-based, multi-class politics. We hoping that this is the thing that's going to undo it. And I think Sa'eed is also saying at the same time, a lot of that kind of politics is very symbolic and often amounts to like nothing. So is it that they will at some point, and again, the classes may not take the classic form. It seems like, I won't mention names, but I saw all kinds of people, like they're on channels, television, defending the government, rationalizing for the government. And these are pretty decent people. Will they have, in order for something's got to give, will there have to be some kind of showdown in Nigeria rather than this kind of platitudes and where we all sort of like, I don't know, a leftist kumbaya, like, is there going to have to be some kind of showdown here? I mean, I know this is a long answer and we won't leave here before night. So quickly. And I think Will has one other question before we go.
Sa'eed is praying for the internet to do its magic now.
The problem is that after we've heard like the whole thing about how we get here, we always come with this like question that we want to ask, and it's just like and Antoinette is saying like, "Yo, we got to think about the viewers, we got to think about time." So I really wanted this answer. When I saw that comment, I was just like, "This gets to the heart of it." I think Sa'eed have written about this thing about how there's this idea that the two elite parties in Nigeria who dominate politics, they essentially have the same ideology. So they are then a class, right? And then it seems now we have another class emerging, which is whether it's Seyn Kuti, the Malians, at some point I think Sa'eed also talked about this informal working class movements, market women that are like, is there something there? Or is the best that we can hope for these kind of sporadic outbursts with the Judicial Commission and we're back to some, a détente of sort?
Well, I think, of course, none of us have a crystal ball. And I mean, like, if we, what we would like is precisely that sort of thing, a kind of serious class-based opposition to what is clearly kind of class convergence amongst the parties. We've seen that kind of thing emerge before. So Nigeria is not without a history of kind of left opposition to conservative political legacies. We just haven't seen that emerge in the Fourth Republic yet. That's in the current attempt at a democratic, liberal democratic order that began in '99. So yeah, I mean, that's clearly missing, and I think, this hints at that possibility. But as Annie was saying, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, both in responding to and kind of making sure that what has been achieved here isn't squandered or doesn't kind of fizzle away, because that itself can be quite demoralizing for a new generation of people who just entered into politics. But also in kind of moving forward on this kind of wider agenda of trying to build more lasting political structure that can challenge, this sort of class convergence that we're speaking about. But that's not going to come easy, and it certainly won't come naturally. And I think turning a little back to the history of how that's been done in the past, by parties like the PRP in the North, People's Redemption Party, which, by the way, still exists. I mean, not to say that we should all be PRP members, but just kind of to highlight that these sorts of legacies exist. To the AAC in the current era with its various kinds of problems and caveats. But I mean, these are clear attempts, I think, to try to reframe the question of the Nigerian political economy in class terms. And I think there is some possibility that can move forward. But where we're at the moment, though, is I think for a lot of the people who have participated in this, kind of a sense that there's a generational divide, which is, certainly there, but which, as Annie has just pointed out, might not be the basis per se for the formation of a progressive sort of movement or lasting kind of political alternatives, because, although youth is, kind of correlates with oppression here and correlates with exclusion, it doesn't necessarily suggest that we all have the same perspectives on how society should be ordered. Some of the youth in Nigeria are Wahhabis, right? So, I mean, that's just one of a variety of youth perspectives that exist there. So, I don't necessarily believe that, our age alone is enough. So, yeah, I think centering these questions of how you respond ideologically, to the alternative, to what's on the table, how you craft an alternative ideological response is critical, if not inevitable.
Okay, I'm going to have a crack at it. So one of the things that struck me initially when the movement emerged was that it had the potential to broaden questions, to teach people in the West something about policing, right? Where the question of policing, the kind of police kill more white people than black people in America is used as a sledgehammer to break Black Lives Matter. But in actual fact, it tells us something more about the character of policing and the way in which it's mobilized and directed at criminalizing the poor being disproportionately black. I think in the Nigerian context, that's the potential more broadly. In the Nigerian context, one of the things that it tells us to be on guard for, in terms of how certain dynamics of policing, of brutality, of bad governance, etc., can be reflected through people's lived experiences. One thing we have to be on guard for is attempts to make it into a tribal issue. I saw a video the other day of what's his name, Adamu Gaba, the guy who tried to sue Jack Dorsey for $1 billion for promoting the protest on the anti-SARS protest on Twitter, where he'd done a in Alsa basically saying it's a Christian conspiracy to unseat Buhari, right? And there are constantly these attempts to use other experiences which are meaningful to people's lives to deflect from or mystify certain relations of power. I think in Nigeria, the question of class is so complicated, not just because of the different constituencies to whom it could refer to, but also because of the size of Nigeria's diaspora. When we talk about, the laptop, the iPhone as being a symbol of being wealthy or being a symbol of being part of the middle class, you could just have one sibling who managed to get their way out of Nigeria and is working really hard abroad and sending money back home, right? I made the point on Twitter the other day that someone brought to my attention that Nigeria gets more in remittances than oil revenue, and that's been the case for the last 6 years. And so certainly the constituency of people that you're looking for potentially isn't one that we yet have the language to describe, or isn't one that we've yet done the work to identify. And so I think that's one of the biggest tasks ahead.